My man, Phil Bennett, former Baylor defensive coordinator, longtime college football coach, on Mondays joins us in the 5 o'clock hour. Craig and Paul with me. David Smoke, thanks for your time. That's a good-looking Is that purple?
What's that?
That shirt you're wearing, is maybe the screen?
Psychedelic pink. It's a nice psychedelic pink.
Okay, it looks good.
I got it in San Francisco. My wife liked it.
So wait a minute. Did you get it or did she get it for you?
She got it for me.
Okay. Hey, is there any comparison, and I'm not trying to talk about the talent yet, but is there any comparison? Do you see the possibility of how Baylor can close out this year to what you did, different circumstances, in 2012?
Absolutely. I've thought about that. I have. The way they have played the last couple of weeks has been very impressive. And it's obvious that those coaches have done, I want to say this first, have done a great job of just what we talked about. Stayed on the same train, preaching the same thing, and the kids are listening. It's been two very impressive wins. And when your quarterback is playing as good as Sawyer is, it's made everybody better. Defensively, your kicking game, I mean, my goodness, the big running back, they're fun to watch. And in that game against OSU, you kept thinking, well, this could be a little bit like Iowa State second half. Never happened. So, yes, I'm down with that. I think that could happen.
Phil, your Aggies, my goodness, what a second half. Has Marcel Reed taken the job from Wegman, or do they have a situation where, I mean, they are still confident in Wegman. That was not his matchup, and it was certainly Marcel Reed's.
One of the things that I remember, I talked to Colin Klein earlier in the season after Wegman had been hurt. He was really excited. He said, one of the things we find out, we didn't want him hurt, but one of the things we found out that we've got two guys that are capable of winning. Marcel won on the road, had a big game versus Florida. Then he came back and he's played well. And that's a good feeling when you have two guys that you feel good about. And I think right now it is a game of matchups. For whatever reason, Connor did not play good the first half. I think they made a really, really tough but good decision. The hardest thing to do is what's best for the whole and not the few. And they felt it. Connor felt it. Coach Elko felt it. And to put him out there and just to see what it did, not just for the offense. I mean, the defense played better. I mean, you could tell that game was perked up. And, I think that either way they go, I think you'll see both of them play regardless from here on out.
What impresses you, outside of the obvious talent that they've accumulated over the last few years, what impresses you the most about A&M's defense?
I think that one of the things that I like about them right now is they were a little bit like at times like I was early in my career at Baylor. We didn't have experienced guys. We didn't have guys that were going to be first-round draft picks, but they're keeping things in front of them. They're making people work for what they get, playing really good run defense. Their front seven is fitting well. They're playing a lot of kids, and they're playing hard. And when that game was 17-7, a lot of people thought, this LSU is the quarterback was on rhythm. There were a lot of things happening. They were able to put them in a stall. And that's what you do in big games. You find a way. I'll never forget my first year at Baylor. We'd gone up there, and we ran into a buzzsaw at Kansas. And it was a game we didn't, Art will tell you, we didn't play particularly well on offense. And we got down. And we came back, and we won the game, made a defensive play at the end of the game, and we won the game up there. The next week we're playing OU. And I think we were 30, maybe 29, 30-point underdogs. And we went out, and I told them, I said, if we can keep, in front of us and make them earn anything, and we did. We won a huge game, and I thought that sparked us on to a really good season.
Can you mention what the coaching staff has done? Because they've taken, this, you've been in the business for you're almost like most of your life. They've been getting picked on, and by the way, it's about wins and losses. What does it say that despite who they were, 2-4, looked like there was no clue that they're playing the way they are? What does it say about what the players think of the staff and Dave Aranda?
Well, it's like I said, if you remember, I don't know, it was before the Tech, or actually before the Iowa State game. I think JJ and I both said we wouldn't be a bit surprised if they went up and beat Iowa State. Well, it didn't happen then. They had a good first half, but on that road, it says volumes. It says that they're keeping the focus, on the players and what they're trying to get done. And it says that those players are listening to them and believing them that if we do this, we'll have a chance to win. I used to tell kids, you talk to me without talking. And that's what they're doing. They're not talking right now. You know what they are doing, though? They're playing.
They are playing, and now with winners of 2 in a row and TCU coming up on Saturday night. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoke, David Smoke with the great Phil Bennett with us on 365 Sports.
Phil, they've beaten TCU exactly once since 61-58, though, and every team has a team that no matter what the circumstances, they're in their head about. For Nebraska back in the day, was it Iowa State or
Texas?
It was Texas.
Yeah.
It was Texas. For Texas, it was Kansas State. For the longest time, they just were in their head. For A&M, it's been Mississippi State until 2 weeks ago.
Right.
That just for whatever reason's in their head. How does that start? And how hard is it for a coach to combat it, knowing that it's almost supernatural in that regard?
Well, it starts by people like you and me and Smokey talking about it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They say, oh, here it goes, here it goes. I remember when I was at Baylor, I mean, Oklahoma State, the first 2 years, God almighty, I think it was either 13, 14, one of the years, we haven't beaten them in Oklahoma State since 1931. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
And we go up there thinking, hey, we're a pretty good team. I think it might have been in 13 when and we don't play well and they beat us. So a lot of it has to do knowing what you're getting into. Obviously, this is a heck of a rivalry. TCU and Baylor, and I tell people my time at Baylor was so much fun. The kids were so good, but the 2 games that I remember being extremely disappointed were obviously the West Virginia game in 12. And the TCU game in 16, when Art wasn't there. We had this big discrepancy about, let's have a blackout, let's do this, let's do, the blackout. And we spent more time on that BS than we did getting ready to play, and just got our ass kicked. And TCU was ready to play, and we didn't. And we had, up to that point, we had great games with them. But I think this team is capable. This game on matchup looks really an even. It could be a hard-fought game.
What is your favorite TCU memory?
My favorite TCU memory is 2013. We went up there knowing Casey Paha was their quarterback. They were talented. They had good receivers, good running back. They were good. And we went up there. And unfortunately, this is sad, but Art's brother had died the day we got there. And he was very emotional, and it was a big game. And we go out, and we struggle offensively. We don't play very good. And I think we had 5 takeaways on defense. And I know Orion, Ahmad gets kicked out of the game on the hit on the receiver, head to head. Orion comes in. He takes a pick 6 back. Eddie Lackey takes a pick 6 back, and our safety intercepts the ball in the end zone to win the game.
Terrell Burt.
It's sort of a 2-week run. The next week we play Texas in the closing the case down. And don't get me wrong, we were great on offense, but that day, we knew we had made a great contribution to having us making the next week big. And we go play Texas. I think it was 6-3 at halftime, and Texas had 2 first downs. So it really gave our kids confidence, that, hey, you know what, we could be a championship team and a championship defense. And that TCU game was big. I know Eddie, I think both of them were over 50-yard returns. Y'all might look that up. But it was really it was confidence building.
Well, Terrell Burt's the one that picked off the pass. It was tipped in the end. And it made me think about this, Phil, because we've discussed some of the guys you've coached and some that were the JUCO guys, KJ and Williams, and what they meant to you at the time because they had nothing really. Then Ahmad and Orion, the running buddies that, my God. But the Terrell Burts, Ryan Reed had the knockdown pass in 61-58 that gave you guys the chance that maybe nobody ever even thinks about. But when guys like that make plays, and they were good, but when they make plays like that in a moment that gives them a little bit of that sunshine.
I think I've told you this, Smoke. One of the things that coaches around the country, and I knew we were doing it, we were evaluating kids well, which is the key to recruiting, and we were developing. I mean, we had Kaz Kazadi, the best strength coach in America, and his staff. And we were getting them and developing them. Ryan was not a highly recruited kid, but I'm going to tell you something. Ryan Reed was a baller. T. Burt was a baller. I can go on and on, guys that we had. I tell you the story of Xavier Howard, Carlton Buckles. I mean, he should still be sending Carlton checks. Carlton stayed with him, got me down there. We found out, and he should send me a check because I found out that R on his transcript doesn't mean remedial. It means remote building. And once we found that, we had us an all-pro corner. So that was part of the evaluation, and it's crucial. I mean, you go back to Corey Coleman. We identified Jim Gush, Kendall, all those guys. Art identified Corey Coleman early, and shoot, the rest is history.
Yep. Orion's interception was 82 yards and Lackey was 54.
Yeah,
you were right.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a tough day just because there was a lot of emotion going on.
Phil, there's a lot of emotion this weekend. We had Bryce Petty on earlier. We're going to have Troy Baker, Jordan Niver, among others, about the ceremony to honor the 2013 and 14 Big 12 championship teams. It's a long time coming. It's the 10th year of the 14 team, and they had to wait for 13. They couldn't do it. It ended up working where they could do both. What does this weekend, and I'm going to ask you some other things too, and so will Paul and Craig, what does this weekend mean, you think?
It's a weekend of reflection and thanks. I've talked to a lot of kids, and just the fact that they're getting honored. I mean, it's just, I talked to Art today, and it really makes me emotional. I'm just extremely proud of those kids, what they were, what the coaching staff was. I mean, it was a great group of people all the way around. And it's just, I'm very thankful that I got to be a part of it, and very thankful that I got to coach those guys. I mean, that they were everything that you want as a coach. We didn't have babies. You mentioned those guys and Nivar and of course all those guys were guys. Troy Baker, tough ass. All those guys that were guys that when you put it on the field on Saturday, you felt good about what was fixing to happen.
Art's going to be at an event. There's going to be a couple of things going on Friday. Obviously, Bryce Petty said that was one of the first questions about who's going to be invited, who's going to be there. What is it going to mean to him? I know that there's, still some things that people either have to say or don't say, but what does it mean, you think, for you and him and others?
As I said, I talked to him. He's extremely excited about seeing the guys. The best thing about Art Briles, it was never about him. It was about the players, and they will tell you that. That's why they love him. It was always about the players. And now, there's a reason. I always say this, and I don't have to say this to defend anybody, but there's a reason why we had the #1 graduation rate, the #1 APR. I mean, our players, they wanted to do good to perform for him and the staff. And as a coach, I tell people this. Anybody that's ever watched me, I'm hot wired. I'm aggressive. I'm there, but it became a lot fun. He rubbed off on me on a good way. And we had a good time. I mean, and sometimes when I hire people, I always tell this. I laugh. They said, "Why'd you keep this guy? Why you keep that guy?" And I said, I don't want a bunch of me's. I want some guys that will complement what I do and what I feel like I can bring. And I think Art and I we're really looking forward to seeing the guys sharing thoughts and maybe telling a few lies. And but some of them, I know there'll be some BS because I've already know Ahmad and Orion will lay something down. We might have to have an ambulance out there. I don't know if they want this year-old man getting on them anymore.
Well, that's all they're used to. That's all they're used to. If you're not getting on them, they're not going to be able to function.
I laughed. I told him, I said, "You sure you want to see my old ass?"
I think he will give you a massive hug.
I love him and Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan, I will tell you something. I've told this, and Ryan Reed knows it as good as anybody and can do it. And T. Burke, Orion had days where I truly believe he sat in the locker room day. He goes, "Hey, I'm going to burn his ass today. Y'all get ready." and he could do it just with a look.
You knew that.
I knew it.
Yep. Phil, was there ever a chance that this was going to go on without Art being involved in some way?
The group of players, and I can tell you how this went. Obviously, and I want to say this. I mean, Sammy Citrano was when I always thought, hey, he's one of us. When I was there, Sammy was so good to us as a staff, and he was one of us. He knew everything. There was no secrets. I mean, he fed us. He lived with us. He died with us, and which I know he is now. I mean, he's a Bear through and through, and he had talked to some of the players that had, and I don't want to leave anybody out. Some of the prime guys, and he up front, he told Mac, who I really like Mac Rhodes. I like everybody there that and said, "This is what I'm going to do." And I don't think they have a problem. Now, it's okay. The players I wouldn't get on the field anyway. I mean, and it's theirs to be recognized. Getting to see them at this event that we're having at Georgia's is what we wanted. That's what we wanted. It wasn't about, I didn't need the crowd, or I just needed to see these guys. And I know Art feels the same way.
Did you hear what Aranda? They're going to let the players, if they want, whoever wants to sit in that new area. That's a new suite setup in the end zone on the south side.
I didn't hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know the exact thing here, but we had a report on our website that Aranda was going to pick up the tab, although there shouldn't be a tab, for them to be able to sit in that. It's kind of a brand new area that they built for this year in the south end zone. That's kind of a suite type look. And that's what they can if they want to. That's awesome.
That would be wonderful.
How many tears will be shed this weekend?
I told you. I guess when you get old, I laughed. Art and I in a month will be 69. I say 70, but I don't need to rush it. But it's just I reflect and I'm very, very thankful. My time there was precious. The people were precious. The players. I'm just thankful, and I guess the older you get, it makes you emotional. I still keep in contact with most of these guys, and as I told them, it doesn't go away. I mean, it's a life until they put us down. We're going to be lifelong friends, and we loved them, and they knew it, and they loved us, and I would think it's going to be rather emotional.
Yeah, and TCU being there, and of course there's some connection. Yeah, with Kendall and Cos and Buckles and a couple others. Phil, thanks for your time. It's always great. She did great with that shirt, by the way. Have the time of your life this week and enjoy it.
All right, I'll tell them. Thank you, guys. Maybe I might run into you. Okay.
Phil Bennett, I hope so. Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach, defensive coordinator at Baylor.